To start developing in HTML, we'll need a text editor. So let's go ahead and get Komodo Edit. You can find this at activestate.com/Komodo-edit. Once the page is loaded, we'll go ahead and click Download Now. This will take us to the download page. Then you can select the Download Komodo Edit to download the latest package for your specific system. Once you've downloaded Komodo Edit, you can go ahead and install it just like any other piece of software. Now that we have Komodo Edit downloaded and installed, we can go ahead and open it and set up our development environment. Once Komodo Edit loads, you'll be greeted with this start page. We'll be working with this left panel. So for the first time when you load this up, you'll probably see something like this. So what we want to do is select the desktop, right-click on it, and select Make this folder root. This will allow us to directly work in the desktop. If you're not actually seeing this left panel, go ahead and toggle this view with this button right here. Alternatively, you can head over to View, Tabs and Sidebars, and select Places. This will also open up this left sidebar. So once we're inside the desktop directory, we can go ahead and right-click, select a new folder, and create a new folder in which we'll be working in. I'm going to title this HTML. So let's create our first HTML file. So open up Komodo Edit and navigate to the HTML directory we created earlier. Right-click on it and select New File. Here we'll be prompted to enter in the new file name. I'm going to call this structure.html. Notice that most HTML files actually require the .html file extension. So now we can double click on structure.html to open it inside our text editor. Now to start working with HTML, we have something called the HTML document structure. So we start this off with the doc type. The doc type for HTML5 is just doc type HTML. Also notice the exclamation mark at the start of this syntax. The document type for earlier versions of HTML, including HTML 4.01 and XHTML, required quite a large document type. It was actually kind of confusing for new developers. In HTML5, the document type is actually just HTML, doc type HTML. This is part of the beauty of HTML5 and its simplicity. So now we go ahead and create our opening and closing HTML tags. This will contain our head section and body section of our HTML. Then we create our head, and inside the head we put a title. This will be the title of our web page. This doesn't have to be the same as the actual HTML file name, but I'm going to go ahead and stick with the naming convention we have and call it structure. Then we have our body. Inside the body is where we put content that we would actually want rendered in the browser. In the head, we put things such as internal and external, scripts and style sheets, meta tags, and the title. As you've noticed, when I've typed this out, Komodo Edit has actually indented certain elements. This is a part of good coding practice. It allows us to easily navigate our HTML and read it efficiently. So as you'll notice, this head section is inside our HTML, so therefore we have indented the head section one tab space. And as the title is inside the head section, we've indented that one additional tab space. So when we start to add content in our body, we'll actually start one tab space in. This is a part of good coding practice and will help you become efficient with writing HTML. So now that we have our HTML5 document structure, let's take a look at it in the browser. So go ahead and save this. Click on the little arrow on this preview button. And from the drop-down menu, select Google Chrome to open it up in our Google Chrome browser. Then select Preview. This is our HTML5 document structure loaded up in the web browser. And as you can see, there's absolutely nothing on this page. It's a blank canvas. So let's take a look at outputting some text to the browser. Just type in "Hello World." Go ahead and save this again and open it up in our browser once again. As you can see, we have the "Hello World" text output to the browser. I hope you've learned a little bit about the HTML5 document structure and how to actually output text to the browser. In this video, we're going to take a quick look at something called the DOM. The DOM is the document object model, and it's basically a structured representation of the document that's actually loaded in the browser. So to demonstrate this, let's just type in some plain old text, "Hello World." And now that we have that, let's go ahead and save our file, then take a look in the browser. As you would have expected, we just have our simple "Hello World" text. But what we can do is we can actually right click in the browser window and select Inspect Element. And this will bring up something called Google Chrome's Developer Tools. And here we have the Elements panel selected by default. Under the Elements panel, this is basically the DOM, the document object model. Here we have a structured representation of the document that's actually loaded into the browser. When we start to get into JavaScript and other scripting languages, we can actually manipulate the content or manipulate these elements inside the DOM. So it's important to note that this structured representation of the document that is loaded in the browser is actually very different to the actual source. In this case, we won't see any difference between what is loaded up in the Elements panel and the actual source. But as you start to work with scripting languages and start manipulating the DOM, we will actually have a vast difference between the actual source code and what is contained within the document object model. So to give you a brief overview of what I'm talking about, we can actually right click and go View Page Source as well. And this will always be exactly what we've typed into our HTML file. So always remember that the actual source code can be different or can differ from the actual DOM, the structured representation of the document that is loaded in the browser.